Hello, friends. It's Katie back with another episode of my vlog. And of course, it's time for another Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. We have another low week of movies this week. We only managed to watch 3 movies between other projects, series that we're watching, and holidays. We had some stuff that got in the way of our movie watching, but that's okay. Some weeks have more movies than other weeks. We watched 3 pretty awesome ones this week, though. The first one was the movie Versus from the year 2000, directed by Ryuhei Kitamura. This is one that we chose because of watching the Crazy Samurai 400 vs. 1 movie last week. We really enjoyed that movie and enjoyed the performance of the lead, Tak Sakaguchi, so much we wanted to look up other movies that he had been in. So I looked up a few of his movies online, and this one sounded so cool, we had to give it a try, and boy, did we love it. It is a zombies versus gangsters Japanese action movie. It takes place in this location called the Forest of Resurrection, which is supposedly some kind of portal to the other side. There's lots of these portals hidden around the world, but most people don't know where to find them. But one of them is in this Forest of Resurrection. So we have our lead character, played again by Tak Sakaguchi, is an escaped convict, and he rescues a girl from some Yakuza characters in the Forest of Resurrection, which then pits this escaped convict character against the Yakuza characters. But as the plot develops, it becomes obvious pretty quickly that anyone who is killed and buried in the Forest of Resurrection is, of course, going to come back as a zombie. So now our escaped convict and this girl he's trying to help have to possibly join forces with the Yakuza characters in order to battle against the undead hordes who are coming out of the ground in this Forest of Resurrection. It's pretty cool. It's got some great writing, great action and fight scenes, a lot of funny, fun level of gore. I would say this movie really feels the closest to The Evil Dead out of every kind of slasher or zombie-ish movie that you could compare it to. It really feels like an homage to Evil Dead and to kind of movies like that. So if you are a fan of zombie movies, if you're a fan of slasher slash splatter type of gory horror movies, if you like Japanese films and that type of swordplay and the gangsters as represented by the Yakuza, all of those sorts of elements, you will probably love this movie. It's really fun. It's very fast paced. It's tons of great action. And like I said, great fight scenes. So Versus from 2000, that was a really great pick and a really great watch. We're still looking for Yakuza Weapon, the other film starring Tak Sakaguchi, which we really wanted to watch. Haven't managed to find that one available on streaming anywhere yet, but please do let me know if you guys know where to find that one, because we're super interested in watching that one. The next night, we kind of took a totally different turn away from Japanese zombie action movies and instead watched basically the opposite of that type of movie. We watched the brand new Netflix documentary, actually came out last year in 2020, called My Octopus Teacher. This is a really sweet, very gentle nature documentary about a man named Craig Foster who lives in South Africa and was doing free diving in a kelp forest off the coast of South Africa when he spotted an octopus just kind of doing her octopus thing in this area that he was diving in. And he proceeded to basically befriend an octopus by coming back repeatedly day after day, showing her that he wasn't dangerous and just kind of hanging out curiously nearby to see what he could learn. And what this documentary does is it basically shows you more than a year, but a full year in the life of an octopus that this guy got really up close to and really got to know, which is a little bit strange when you're talking about a mollusk. But octopi are incredibly intelligent. Craig Foster actually says in the movie that they're as intelligent as a cat or a dog or a lower primate, which is pretty impressive and definitely the smartest mollusk there is on the face of the earth. Or I guess under the water. Is that still on the face of the earth? Yeah, you're just in the water. Anyhow, this is a beautiful documentary. The whole thing is just wall to wall, gorgeous underwater photography, which is credited to all being by Craig Foster. And it does seem like about 90% of it is by him. Looks like he was either wearing a GoPro on his mask or, on a chest mount or something, or carried a camera with him underwater and then would set it up in a certain spot to capture certain behaviors and things that happened. There are some longer shots, really beautiful tracking or panning shots of him swimming through the water, which were obviously done by another person. And I did learn in my research for this that Roger Horrocks is the name of the other underwater cinematographer who contributed to this film. But I do think that Craig Foster actually filmed, like I said, about 90% of it by himself, just on these daily dives that he was doing down into this kelp forest to go hang out with his octopus buddy. If this is sounding boring to you because it's a guy who befriended an octopus, it's not. It's full of drama. It's really, really well done, and it's really well edited. The way that they tell the story in this documentary is incredible. We learned so much about octopi from watching this. And I thought I already knew a lot about them, but man, we learned a lot more. We learned how smart they are. We learned that most of their thinking power is actually in their arms, not tentacles, but arms. Okay. We learned that each of the suckers on the arms that they have are independently controlled by their brain or brains, since some of their brains are in their arms. Foster said that it was like if you had 20,000 independent fingers that could all move by themselves, which is pretty amazing. We got to see this octopus's camouflage techniques of using garbage and shells from the ocean floor to disguise herself. We got to see all different ways of moving around through the water, whether she was jetting or crawling along the ocean floor or making herself look like a rock, but still slowly moving. Or this kind of whirling, dancing, like almost like a lady's broad skirt that goes out when she swirls around in the water. Just fascinating watching her move through the water, watching her flash and change all her different octopus colors depending on what was happening. And there's some very dramatic moments with some predators. Some pajama sharks show up and cause some trouble for our friend the octopus, including, spoiler alert, she gets into a tangle with one of the pajama sharks and gets one of her arms bitten off. And then she has to go into her den for like a week. She doesn't eat, she doesn't come out, but then she starts growing a brand new tiny, tiny baby arm. Amazing. And then we get to watch as the arm gets bigger and bigger, and it's still pretty small when it becomes fully functional. So that's cool. And at one point she meets up with a dude octopus and they do their thing and make some more octopi. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends because I don't want to spoil the ending of it, although the ending isn't that important here. This is much more just, like I said, a really great concentrated look at the life of this one creature who, I feel like octopi are pretty mysterious. They live under the water, which isn't a place that we have a lot of access to. And when we do see them in an aquarium, usually they're hiding in the back of an enclosure. They don't want to, move around and be on display for people. They're pretty shy. Apparently it took him a while to get this octopus to warm up to him and to, come out of her den and actually interact with him and stuff. But it's very, very cool. And if you are the type of person who is interested in nature documentaries, interested in the natural world at all, especially interested in marine life, you're going to love this documentary. It was totally fun. We loved it. We learned a ton from it. And I would love to see more octopus documentaries after watching this one. I don't know if there are any other octopus documentaries, but I'm willing to look for them because this was a very cool experience. The guy, Craig Foster himself, he gets a little cheesy and emotional in a couple of parts, but it's fine. But for the most part, it's just a beautiful, pretty thrilling in parts, slice of an octopus's life, which is pretty amazing to watch. So thoroughly recommended, I'd say for anybody, but particularly if you've got kids around or you're really interested in marine life, give My Octopus Teacher a try. It's definitely going to teach you something. I think you'll get something good out of it. And the third movie that we watched this week, as I promised last week, when I found out that Sean had never seen Tokyo Drifter, I immediately said, well, we have to watch Tokyo Drifter. This is the 1966 film directed by Seijun Suzuki. We caught it on the Criterion channel. I don't know if it's available anywhere else. What can I say about Tokyo Drifter? At its heart, it's just a Yakuza film, but it is so much more than a Yakuza film. It is a highly stylized, avant-garde 1960s Yakuza film that builds on traditions ranging from things like traditional kabuki theater to Hollywood Western movies and absurdist literature, surreal paintings. It draws on everything. It is so cool. And so interesting. It's very jazzy. A lot of people describe it as jazzy, which I think is a really good adjective for this film. It definitely does not play like a straight ahead film. It doesn't play like a more conservative Japanese film from the 1960s. It's definitely, this is Suzuki taking the form, okay, Japanese gangster film, and going, what can I do with this to make this way more interesting, way more button pushing, just way more different from anything anyone has seen. And I think if you haven't watched other Japanese Yakuza films from the same time period, it maybe won't hit quite as hard because it's the real exceptionalism of this movie, I think, lies in its contrast to the other things that were coming out at the same time. But then it winds up being one of these movies that is kind of the seed of inspiration for other filmmakers coming along later to make their films. You know when you see a film that was inspired by Tokyo Drifter. So the basic story is we have Tetsu, who is a former hitman from a Yakuza gang that has been disbanded, and another gang is trying to get him to be in the gang, but his previous boss is convincing him to just become a drifter and, roam around just doing his thing without having allegiance to any gang. But of course, the other gangs who are trying to hire him are also trying to do away with him if he doesn't want to work with them. So he's in this weird position. He's kind of a Ronin, right? He's almost like a samurai who has no master anymore at this point. But again, in a context of mid-60s Japan. The thing that is the real stunner for me about this film, again, as a visual person, as a photographer, this is one of those, every frame is a well-conceived photograph type of films. It is just, the cinematography knocks my socks off every time I watch this movie. The shots are just so gorgeous. The beginning is this very limited, grainy black and white, and then it turns into this explosion of color where the colors that people are wearing in this film are unbelievable to me. Again, it's a Yakuza film from the mid-60s, so you expect everyone to just be in a black suit, but they're not. The colors, the interior shots, whenever they go into, there's a nightclub that they keep going to where the backdrop is all done with lighting, and it keeps changing colors. There's a song about the Tokyo Drifter which keeps being repeated throughout the film, which is great, and it's sung by different people in the film. But yeah, the use of color and the way this film is shot in combination with the way the story is told is just, it blows my mind every time I see it. It does have a bit of a choppy editing style that can take some getting used to, and you definitely have to fill in some gaps on what's happening in the narrative because there's stuff that's implied but not shown. But that's not a problem for most reasonably intelligent people. But this movie isn't just going to spell it all the way out for you. You definitely need to come into it with your brain not being distracted by other things, truly watching this film and not, trying to do 7 things at once. I absolutely love it. I think it is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. Like, I keep gushing about the colors and the way the shots are set up. They're just amazing. And it's just gorgeous. It also has this great bar fight scene in the middle of it, which is how you know it was inspired by Westerns. That is, I don't want to say too much about it, but it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. And so please check out Tokyo Drifter. And if you do, let me know what you think of it. And let me know what you think of the bar fight scene in the middle of the movie, because that's I don't want to say my favorite part because I don't like playing favorites, but it's a pretty stunning standout of a part in a pretty stunning standout of a film. So again, I wouldn't recommend this necessarily for every single person, but if you enjoy Japanese films, if you enjoy gangster films, if you enjoy avant-garde films, colorful films, films that challenge you as a viewer to bring a little something to it, if you want to see a truly beautiful film where every single frame just has unbelievably good composition, this is your movie, Tokyo Drifter. Not to be confused with Tokyo Drift. Totally different movie. And if you accidentally watch Tokyo Drift expecting Tokyo Drifter, you're going to be in for a surprise. And that's it for what we watched this week. Like I said, a surprisingly short week. We have been working our way through a series called Strangers from Hell, which is pretty great, but I'll review that one when we're done with it. And we were busy with other things this week, like yesterday we had our Passover Seder, which was awesome. And we didn't watch any movies with it this year, but I always do like to give you guys the holiday recommendations of the 10 Commandments, starring Charlton Heston and directed by Cecil B. DeMille, is a great one if you want to learn the Passover story. But the other real recommendation I have for this year for Passover films is the Safdie brothers' Uncut Gems. It's not a movie about Passover at all. It's about Adam Sandler being a gambling addict and his life falling apart. But there is a Passover Seder scene in Uncut Gems, which is just dynamite. When we went and saw that film, I was blown away at the Passover scene, and I just felt like I could have been watching my own family. It was amazing. So if you want to watch a more contemporary Seder in a movie that might give you a clue as to what some families have at their Passover Seder celebrations, I'm definitely going to recommend Uncut Gems. And that's it for me for Cinema Club this week. I have no idea what the next week is going to hold. Perhaps some Easter or spring themed films? Unsure. The kids have informed me they are not sitting through another 3-hour Bible epic this year, so we won't be watching Ben-Hur for Easter. But you could if you want to, and especially if you just loved 10 Commandments, you do your back-to-back 3-hour Charlton Heston Bible epics. But anyhow, you guys let me know what you've been watching, or if you have any recommendations for us, especially Easter or spring-themed films. I'd love to hear about it. I will be back in a few more days with another episode of my vlog. Until then, stay safe, take care, and thanks so much for watching. See you later.